it's Olivia. We're out here at the Sanford baseball field and we're about to go do an assignment for my sports photography class. But before we do, I wanted to give you a few tips on how to photograph baseball. The first thing that's really important is where to stand. There's a lot of different places in baseball where you can get some good angles. I would recommend first base, third base, anywhere behind home plate. The outfield can also get some good shots. And then also elevated positions. So if you go up like to the top of the bleachers, you can usually get some good angles from up there. So yeah, just kind of move around. The good thing about baseball is that it happens in like short spurts. So it's not like other sports, where the action is just happening nonstop. So you'll have time like between innings to go and get some good photography. And then another important thing to know is that when you're taking baseball pictures, make sure you capture the emotion. There's a lot of cool ways to, capture the athletes' facial expressions and that sort of thing. And also, like, between innings, usually they'll, all come together and celebrate if it's a good play or something like that. So make sure you capture that emotion on the field. So right now I have my settings on aperture priority, and basically what that means is that you're going to eliminate any of the background images, and so that way you can just really focus in on your subject. As you can see, I have my f-stop on 5.0 and then the ISO is on 200. And so really the higher the shutter speed you have, the greater the ability of your camera to stop the motion. And so since baseball is obviously really fast, you want to make sure that your shutter speed is higher because that's going to give you better resolution pictures. Another thing that you need to know is that depth of field is really important, and so that is the amount of the image that is in sharp focus from nearest to the farthest element. And there are several things that can affect depth of field, and that can be your aperture, that can be the distance of the lens to the subject, and that can also be the length of your lens. And so, as you can see here with my camera, I have a zoom lens. This is a Canon Rebel camera, and so I'm just going to show you here. The camera lens can zoom out really far, and so the more you can extend your lens, the better quality of pictures that you're going to pick up.
After I've taken my pictures, I like to go back and edit them and just make sure that they look the way I want them to. So as you can see from the baseball practice today, I took 84 photos, which is a lot. But that doesn't mean that they're all going to be good photos. So what I like to do is I like to go through them and just kind of see what I have to work with. And some I can tell that I want to keep, and others I can tell that I may want to get rid of. Like, for example, you can tell this one isn't as sharp as this one. So what I would do is I would just go back and delete. And so I would just delete photo, and voila. And so I would just get rid of that. This one is one that I really like, and it's one that I would want to use, and so I would just go up here to the little edit tool. I could click enhance just to make the color a little bit sharper. You can just see how that just picks up the color in his shirt a little bit better, the color on his hat, kind of blurs out the field a little bit more. You can always go in and crop if you want to. This one I really, there isn't a whole lot that I would want to crop off. I mean, if I want to get rid of a little bit of the background there, I could go in and do that. And then when you're done, you just go up here to the top right hand corner and click done. So I'm really happy with that shot, and honestly that's something that I would probably turn in for an assignment. So you can keep going here, and you can really tell the difference between a really sharp photo and then a photo that is not as sharp. So I mean, between those two you can really tell. But I'm going to keep going here and just keep looking at my images. I really like this one. This was when some of the players were working on pitching. They were throwing the baseball against the wall and just kind of going back and forth. And so I would probably use this shot. So I would go in, I would just click enhance. You can see it really sharpens up the color, picks up the color on their uniforms, picks up the color in the background. There's all kinds of editing tools that you can use. There's different filters if I wanted to make it black and white, if I wanted to make it kind of like a faded photo. So you really just, it's totally a preference, and for this case, it's kind of what my sports photography professor would prefer, and knowing her, she wouldn't really like any of these filters. So I'm just going to leave it just with the regular enhance. I would click done, and voila. So you just keep going. Um, it's really fun to play around, and honestly, like I said, you may have 84 photos, 83 photos, but what you turn in for an assignment, is going to be, gosh, just a quarter of that number. So you really have to play around with the images that you have and figure out, which ones work and which ones don't. I always try to include a few different shots of just where I am. So like this one right here, you kind of get a good picture of the setting. Just kind of showing people, um, where you are, and so I kind of like to always point that out in my photos, because setting is really important. Always get a shot of, whatever the equipment is. If it's baseball, get a shot of the baseballs. If it's, soccer, football, whatever, make sure you get a shot of, what they're playing with, because that always helps. But yeah, I don't use Photoshop. I don't use really any fancy editing sites. I think that the editor on this computer works just fine, and that's all you really need. So that's all the time that we have for now. I hope you learned a lot about how to photograph baseball. And just remember that no matter what sport you're taking photos of, just get out there and have fun, meet new people, take advantage of all the great features that your camera has to offer, and always wear comfortable shoes, because that's really important. You want to make sure that you're comfortable and that you can move around easily, and just have a good time.